Welcome back to the Cherry Pickin Hockey Podcast, episode 15. I know last week I did mention that we would probably be back in office, but we are not back in office. So we are back on Zoom. Gonna chat some hockey, obviously lots of storylines, lots of funny storylines, which is always exciting. Hopefully we're back next week in office. I'm hoping we can have a beer, we can celebrate, have an in-person podcast. Avery is quitting drinking for the month, so you might have to tweet out a statement there, Ave, about that.
Yeah, got out of control for a little bit. I'm trying to take my life back in my hands, for a month. But after that, we're good.
Okay, so February, Ave will be back drinking.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to start things off here with a quick one at a time here. I want to say, so Draisaitl and the reporter, everyone knows it's the big talk of the NHL right now. Obviously, him and the reporter went at it. He got called being pissy. I'm guessing all of you have seen the clip. I want to go around and see whose fault. Who are you putting at fault here? Draisaitl or the reporter?
Jim Matheson, 100%. That's not Draisaitl's fault. It's a stupid question after a loss like that. And then you ask the guy, why are you pissy? Like, you're an adult man. You shouldn't be asking another guy, why are you so pissy right now? That's embarrassing on Matheson's part, honestly.
Yeah, I would put the fault. Like, I thought about it, and like, it's not a great look the way that Draisaitl was, like, his body language in that interview. When your team's doing shit, you're obviously one of the best players and people are looking up to you. And his body language was horrendous during that interview. But obviously he's had a couple go arounds with that reporter and he doesn't respect them. We've seen with Matthews, and I forget who's that reporter.
Steve Simmons.
We've seen how he treats him. Like, they obviously there's a bunch of reporter player relationships that we don't really know the back end of it, but I'm guessing there was some sort of back end of that. That's why. Like, I'm guessing Draisaitl probably treated the next reporter like a saint sort of thing a little bit. So I agree with Gianni. I think I'm going to put the blame here on the reporter.
Like, obviously on both sides, they're kind of at fault. Like, Draisaitl's giving him shitty answer, and like, obviously can't tell like guys being pissy after a loss. But my take on this is, man, players they're so mean to reporters all the time. Like, they so often just give them shitty answers, and they have to just eat shit. Like, that's just, being a reporter's got to be an all-time bad job. So I kind of like the idea that, like, eventually he's like, snap back. Like, the guy probably gets a bad answer like 9 times out of 10. So to give it back to him, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
So my thinking is, they've been losing. They've been playing shitty hockey. I think it would be a way, like, different story if Draisaitl was up there being all happy and nice and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's more like, the team's shitty. I kind of have to, like, be mad, right? Or else it kind of looks bad on me. I think it was an after practice interview too. Like, how the fuck would you want to talk to a loser like that after practice? It's like, let me go on with my day. Let me go home, right? And it's you're right, Cole. It has to be one of the shittier jobs. That's why podcasting has gotten so popular, right? People don't ask them the same stupid generic questions after practice every day. You get to see their personality when you ask them, "Oh, how's the team doing?" When you've been playing that shitty, of course, it's like, we need to play better, right? Like, there's only so many answers you can give at that point.
Yeah,
I said for the longest time too is they got to get rid of the between period interview. Like, they never get anything out of those guys. It's always like pucks and deeps, follow the game plan. And it's just like, it's the biggest waste of time. I think hockey's like the only sport that does that, maybe other than like football. They interview the coaches as they go to the locker room. Like, you never get any sort of good content out of that. And it's just a waste of time. I don't know why they insist on continuing that tradition.
Yeah, it's I guess it's like goes back to they've done it for so long. They don't want to change things sort of thing.
And hockey players give the worst interviews too. They never say anything about it.
No, yeah, they definitely have like very boring, the top players in the NHL don't really have crazy personalities like Crosby, McDavid. They're just like guys who are just really good at hockey and don't really care for that type of stuff. I don't know if that's
true though, but the way they portray themselves in the media is that way. But I'm sure to their teammates, it's a lot different.
100%.
Like, do you guys remember in the playoffs last year, a guy was asking McDavid, he's like, or McKinnon, He asked him, they got swept by Vegas, I think. And the reporter's question to him was like, you guys have had a couple disappointing playoff losses. Do you guys ever just kind of go into a game and just think, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna win today? And then like MacKinnon was like so dumbfounded by that question. Like, how do you just like ask a guy just go into a game and just win and not think about it? Like, that guy's not played a competitive sport once in his life.
It's pretty much, yeah, like asking him, like, hey, what, you ever think about winning this game? Like, yeah.
That had to be one of like the craziest like questions asked. Like, but then again, like that's like a really like that reporter's job is like get his name out there and like look, we still talk about that clip to this date. So like he's obviously remembered. It was a dumb question, but sometimes those reporters like their job is to ask like dumb ass questions to get in the news. And that was like a huge thing. Like it sucks. Like I don't even know how MacKinnon could have answered that question, but like obviously right after a loss and their team was projected to like Stanley Cup, like winning was like one of the only outcomes that really would have been accepted. And they did.
Does Matheson get to stick around now? Like, do you think he's just done?
He's been around. He's been around since the 70s for them, I'm pretty sure.
I'm surprised.
I don't think they're getting rid of him for that.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like you guys heard like after like he just asked a cutthroat question to follow up, and he was just like, you've been obviously pissed off, and your play has been showing on the ice, like blah blah blah, blah. And Draisaitl just kind of like he handled that question very well. Draisaitl just sort of laughed and just said, "Yeah, pretty much fuck off." But like that's just funny. But like you gotta expect that. Like reporters are gonna be ruthless when they ask you questions.
I love when players in general just kind of give reporters shit like that. I just feel so good. There's this compilations on YouTube of just athletes from like whatever sport, like everybody loves Marshawn Lynch going up and just being, I'm just here so I won't get fined. Everybody loves that because it's like on brand for him. And then just like when other guys do it, sometimes people get a little pissed off. But I don't know. I think it's so good. The reporters always ask the dumbest questions to these guys after games. Sometimes they just have to eat their own shit about it.
Yeah. Talking about exchanges, there was a little player exchange happening between Brad Marchand and TROCHEK. The Hurricanes, I don't know if you guys saw this, but pretty much like someone like compared TROCHEK's game to Brad Marchand, and he was like, "Are you calling me a rat?" And then Brad Marchand came out and said it's like comparing a Lamborghini to a Prius. And they've sort of been like going at it lately. And then the Hurricanes like just stomped on the Bruins. And we all know like the Hurricanes Twitter account is very active and loves to get involved with shit like this. And they tweeted out something about Brad Marchand, and he came back and chirped up the Carolina Twitter account. But do you guys think that the way the Hurricanes run their Twitter account, it's pretty much a two-parter here? Do you think that Twitter accounts should be doing this around the NHL, and do the Hurricanes have the best Twitter account in the NHL?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's so that talking about hard jobs, like running a social media account for a professional team to create like any sort of traction has got to be such a tough job. So especially in a place like Carolina, like if you can do anything to get fans in the stadium, I think you're actually making an impact. Where most of those social media, like, I don't even know any memorable tweets from any other like professional team sports accounts or social accounts. So the fact that they're able to, like, I don't even know, if you're able to get in the head of the players like a little bit and make a bit of a difference, get more people in the arena, I think it's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that Vegas used to be like, I feel like Vegas was way more in the news, their Twitter account, when they first started. And now like I barely hear about Vegas's Twitter account. Carolina Hurricanes just keep coming back. I feel like their social team has been in the news like constantly with interaction with like players from outside and getting involved. But I think it's good. I think it's good for the game. Like as long as like the management is like okay with it and they're not going against them. But like, I guess there is sort of a line that like social teams can't really cross. And the Hurricanes get real close to that line. They're almost hugging that line where it's like, holy fuck. Like, I can't believe like they're like commenting on like players and other teams and stuff. And sometimes it can go offside where it's just like kind of, I could see why some people just hate it, just hate the way that they run their social media.
But look,
I mean, I like the rivalry builds between players
Mhm.
and teams a bit more. Like Marchand, I think the thing he said is like, you guys are the reason why players pay
Escrow.
20% escrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just because like
It's
they
such a
lose
good-
so much money. And that's like, how do you respond to that? Your team makes no money. A guy's rightfully chirping you for it. I think that's like long term, I think that's good for the game. Like, I don't know if you fucking Leafs players are going off on somebody from Tampa or whatever.
Mhm.
All that guy has to say is you guys haven't won since 1967. And what
Yeah.
do you say? Like, you can't respond to that. It's like it's just a
Mhm.
fact. So I think stuff like that's good. Like good for growing the game, getting more people interested.
I agree. Dave, what are your thoughts on this Twitter account? I know you're a huge Twitter guy, so it seems like we might have lost Dave right here on this.
Awesome.
podcast.
But a time where
Just frozen there.
Yeah.
he's real frozen. A time that Carolina really towed that line of like, is this like okay that you're affected? Stuff
Mhm.
like I can't imagine management loves this. Is when with the Kotkaniemi stuff.
Yes,
they were
yes, I agree.
ruthless. Like they said,
Yeah.
like thanks when the offer sheet went through. And you see when Montreal played Carolina, like in October of this past year,
Yeah.
they had like 3 or 4 like absolutely ruthless tweets. They said they tweeted out like the stats after the game, and they were like, "I'm just gonna offer these stats here on this sheet or something like that." And I was
Yeah.
like, man, these guys do not hold back at all.
That's like that was when like an example of a line where it was like almost crossed when they were like
Yeah.
doing the offer sheet stuff, and then it was kind of like affecting like both managements when they were trying to make a deal. It's like, okay, like are they going too far here? Like you love to see that, but I almost thought that was like a little too far the way that they handled that offer sheet.
I mean, I think the team likes it, but I think it's like, what do you think? Like Gary Bettman sees like, okay, Carolina offered Kotkaniemi that contract, and then they gave like it wasn't the social media team. The GM of the team gave Kotkaniemi a $20 signing bonus because that's Aho's number.
Yeah,
like that's a level of like the management is straight up saying like, yeah, we are letting Montreal know this is so they can just eat shit on that.
Yeah,
and it's like.
No.
Like I wonder what like Gary Bettman or the owners of other teams are like, what the hell's going on here? Like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, they probably get like the management also like they're like you said, Johnny, they're definitely accepting this type of style, and it's obviously been in their framework of that's how they want to be, because obviously we know attendance isn't great in Carolina. So, I mean, having a very funny and even the shit they do after the game there, it's different. Like they have to do ways like that for their business to survive pretty much.
Do you think
like
the guy that runs do you think the guy that runs their socials is like has to go to management and get like a confirmation that, hey, can I tweet out this like kind of edgy tweet? Because I love the idea of like some 25-year-old kid running their socials, just going rogue, giving other GMs fits. Like,
yeah, I think to a certain extent he probably needs validation on certain tweets, but the problem is like he has to be like whoever's running their socials has to be fast and quick.
Oh yeah,
like they don't have time. Like the GM also doesn't have time to approve anything. So my guess is there's some sort of manager that just got the green light, and he's just like, I could just see it like.
He has like a guideline of like if it's something he just wants to send out, I feel like it's somebody who has a good enough understanding of what he's allowed to do. And then if it's like the Kotkaniemi thing, like they definitely had meetings about how they're handling that situation because again, like nobody looked at the contract Kotkaniemi got and he said, oh, they got him at a good value. Like he's so ridiculously overpaid. And the management like it seems like they made a marketing decision in giving Kotkaniemi that deal more than like a hockey operations decision.
No, yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Mm-hmm.
Shit like that, they definitely have like high level meetings about.
Yeah, Avery is back after he was frozen during this topic. We do want his opinion. We do want his opinion on this Twitter debate here. But what do you think of the Hurricanes Twitter account?
I think the fact that we're talking about them means they're doing a good job.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't have any other social team to talk about means that like they're getting notoriety. They're doing a good thing. And you can't fault them for what they're doing at all. I think it's good for the game. People who don't follow hockey, you see a tweet like that and you see a player going back and forth with another team. it's only good for the game, I think. So it makes a lot of sense. I think they're doing a good job.
Yeah. Okay. So Sportsnet came out with something I saw. They're called their segment Rink Fries, which I thought was a funny segment, but pretty much most interesting players at the deadline. I'm going to name 3 players here, and I want to know your guys' thoughts here. Patrick Laine was discussed, Claude Giroux, and Thomas Hertl. What do you guys think of those 3 players, and do you think they'll be dealt at the deadline?
Patrick Laine, no, I don't think so.
He was like the one guy that he said was like a stretch, because I guess he's an RFA next year. So if Columbus doesn't plan on signing him, then he could get dealt. That would be
I heard somewhere. I don't know how the validity to this, but I heard that Columbus might be in on Chychrun, which would be ridiculous for them. But if you're getting a guy like Chychrun and you move Laine to do that, that seems like there's value there, I guess, if you're going to do that. But
that's true. I could see that.
How realistic is Giroux to you guys? Because Philly's pretty bad this year, and they've been bad. And like at some point, they're going to have to sell off some. And is he a UFA at the end of the year?
I'm not too sure. I believe he is, because his trade is like pretty much like he's going to get traded is pretty much the talk right now on UFA. Claude Giroux. I think that if Claude Giroux went to like a team like the Minnesota Wild,
man,
I think that would be a great ad for them. Like they could use like a veteran on that team and getting a guy who can also produce, like that'd be huge for them.
He makes a decent amount, so Philly's got to retain on that, and then they're retaining. You're going to be paying a lot for him. So like what's a trade package for him? Like, you talking like first prospects? Like, what are you getting for Giroux if you're doing that?
Yeah, based off like even looking at what they traded for like Jack Eichel, like it shouldn't even be near that ballpark of what you're getting, what you're trading for Giroux, because Giroux is like Jack Eichel still has like 8 years on his contract at 10, I guess still 10 million. So like that, looking at that return, like I don't think you have to give up much for Giroux. Like I'm thinking of maybe a prospect as a first. Like that's what I'm thinking. Like anything more than that, I guess a lot of people will want Giroux just because he's a veteran and he can also produce for your team. So that's very valuable for anyone in the playoff hunt. But I can't see the asking price being like extremely high.
He's not that young too, right?
Yeah.
And like for a rental, if you're giving up the farm for a rental, you better win the cup.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I can't see a top prospect being traded here for Giroux. I would be shocked if a top prospect got traded for Giroux.
It's always surprising me like how much teams are willing to give up on rentals. Like you get the guy for a couple months, you didn't really give up a top prospect. Like it's kind of like, I don't know, again led to the Penguins type thing. We can get a first round and a couple guys or something like that. Seems like a lot.
What did the Leafs trade for Foligno last year, Jonah? You remember?
Believe it was a first, and then there was a first and like another like side piece. And I think it was like a conditional pick or something.
So that's like a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It's because the thing is, like last year, there was no like all the Leafs wanted was like a power forward penalty kill specialist, and there was none available at the deadline. Like 4 teams were on Foligno. The crazy thing is, a guy like Taylor Hall, I'm pretty sure went for less.
Yeah.
And like a large part of that was that Taylor Hall had that no trade, and he was only willing to go to a couple teams, and there was like more factors in it. But yeah, sometimes teams it only looks bad when like the Leafs didn't make it past the first round, and Foligno was injured the entire time.
Yeah.
So it looks really bad. But like in 2015, I always go back to this one trade. The Hawks traded a first-round pick to Arizona for Anton Vermette to be their fourth-line center. And that's like a crazy like give up for what Vermette was at that time. And then they won the cup. So nobody ever looks back on that trade as like, the Hawks gave up way too much for him. It's if you win, nobody cares in the end, right? So
Was Bill Guerin like a rental too when the Pens won a cup like in like their first few years against Detroit? I feel like that was a rental that stuck out to my mind too. That sticks out in my mind.
He
I
got
don't know how
traded
long
from
he was there for.
Yeah, he got traded from who again? Who's
The Islanders.
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
so
everywhere.
again, it's guys like that, and then
Yeah.
it just depends how you do, right? Like you can say Tampa gave up 2 first-round picks for Blake Coleman, right? They gave up their first, and then they gave up Nolan Foote, who was their first-round pick the year before. Like that's 2 first-round picks for a bottom 6 winger, right? Like it's just the results are all that matters in the end. If you win, it's a good trade.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's results. Someone's gonna push the needle with Giroux. Like people are gonna see how valuable, and like you said, based on the path, I guess the asking price should be high. It's just like when you're comparing it to what they got for Jack Eichel, it's just tough to see it. But then again, these are teams that are, I guess, not desperate, but they're in need of a push, so they're gonna overpay, right? Like it's just the nature of the trade deadline. Versus the Jack Eichel situation was kind of like relaxed, and the asking price was obviously high to start, and it kept going on. But at some point, they just need to get rid of him. I think they should have waited. Like if Jack Eichel, did he take that surgery? Do we know if he took that surgery? He did.
Yeah, he got it, and he's like skating and everything. Like he's back. Like was the right decision in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, if
so
Buffalo didn't bitch about it, he would have been like almost ready at the start of the season, would he not have been?
Mhm.
yeah, like
He would have been ready in the summer. He would have made training camp if they gave it to him when he asked.
So
I wonder if if Buffalo would have got more if they waited till the deadline, but they wanted him out. But I wonder if they traded him now and he was skating.
They
Well,
totally
it would've been
bitched
based on
about
his
themselves.
health.
Well, if they didn't, he wouldn't have got the surgery like under them. Like if they gave him the surgery, then they definitely would have got more. A big thing with it was if you traded for Eichel, you had to wait for him to get the surgery. So like how long ago did he get traded? It's been months.
Yeah, it's
and
been
he's
months.
still not playing for the team that acquired him.
Yeah. No, you got that right. Okay, I wanted to talk about Quinton Byfield. He's getting called up to the LA Kings. I guess he broke his foot right before the year, something like that. He had an injury. A lot of people are sort of been speculating that they think that Byfield could end up being a bust. I wanted to know, kind of feel the room here. What would you put your percentages at if Byfield turned out to be a bust? Looking in, let's say, in 5 years we look back and he's a bust. What percentages would you give to that potential outcome?
I think it's still too early to tell.
Yeah,
On a
what
guy
do you
who hasn't
call
played in the
a bust?
NHL.
Like a bust is like he ends up being like out of the top 6 in 5 years. Like he's not a top 6 forward for the LA Kings.
50%. I don't know.
I was thinking the same. I don't know. I think it's like it's getting up there to me, like 60-70%, that I think that Byfield just doesn't end up being a top 6 forward in the NHL. And
I like Byfield.
Fine.
I like Byfield, so I'd put it around like I think he'll be okay, like 40%, I would say. But the fact that he still hasn't put up any sort of numbers in the AHL is a little concerning as a big guy. Do you think it's a better sign or a worse sign, the fact that he's like a big physical guy and he's still like, do you think those guys take time, or since they're bigger, should they come in the league and do well quicker?
Technically, they should, like, technically if you're like him being bigger and like athletic was like his huge like point that he was so physical and big.
Yeah.
I don't think it should take you longer. I think if you're bigger, it should actually be the opposite. It should be quicker than if you're smaller. Personally, like I guess people will argue. I guess it's the speed aspect and getting them up to speed, because obviously the NHL is a higher pace than what he's used to in the OHL with the Wolves. But I think if you're bigger, then you fit right in, because obviously the NHL is a physical game and it's more physical than the OHL hockey. So the players are bigger. Like that's the one thing a lot of people say when you're talking about people who play in the AHL who come from the OHL. They say the number one thing they notice right away is how physical the game is and how bigger the bodies are. So like if Byfield can fit in right away, you think that would translate right into his game right away.
Well, I think like I think you see this too sometimes. Like I get what you're saying with like that argument, but if you're used to bullying like 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are like so much smaller than you, and that's your game, you can just easily body guys off the puck.
Yeah.
Then once you get to a game where guys are actually bigger than you, then it becomes now you actually have to change how you play because you can't just do that. I think you see that with like there's guys like Lawson Krause who was just a force in juniors, and he comes to NHL and he can't just like shove guys off the puck anymore. He can't just like keep them away. So it's so much harder for him because of his size.
Yeah. 19 years old, right? Like for someone who kind of struggled in the World Juniors too, in these bigger time tournaments, I'd believe it's concerning, but you got time on. You can't. Same with Lafreniere, right? Same draft.
Yeah.
They were calling him a bust after that as well, but you give him time, find a spot here.
No, yeah.
I think, sorry.
Go there, Gianni.
I was going to say, I think LA is a good spot for him because he's playing behind Kopitar and Danault.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of pressure, like a lot of responsibility taken off him. He can just kind of worry third line minutes, not have to do anything too hard for him. He can just take it easy. He's not going to be leaned on for anything too serious.
The good thing is in a Canadian market too, right?
Yeah.
Like this would be way more heightened than it is. So it's a blessing where he is.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely a blessing. I agree with Johnny. I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Like these guys are bigger, and like a big part of his game, like even when I played hockey back in the day, when you can knock a guy off the puck, it completely changes the way you play. And like when you get to a certain level where your hits aren't hitting as hard and you're just kind of bouncing off them, then you have to completely change the style of play you're playing, right? You're more stick checking versus hitting. And that's probably what Byfield is going through right now is changing his style of play, because obviously what he's used to isn't what he's always been, the bigger guy, like, and now he's not the bigger guy. So he's got to change his game a little bit. Okay, so the All-Star teams obviously got released, and Nathan MacKinnon has been circling around because he made a comment about how Kadri he ended up getting in as like a last man in, but on the first team he wasn't in. The NHL still has that rule about everyone gets one player in the All-Star game, and MacKinnon sort of called it out. Do we think that the NHL should change the way they pick players for the All-Star game?
100%.
Does anybody actually care about the All-Star game though?
Yeah, that's another thing.
That's the other argument.
Yeah. Did you see the other side of what MacKinnon said as well? He also said, like, in 2017, I went to the All-Star game. Like, there's no way I should have gone to the All-Star game too.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of respect to put himself out there like that, but it's so dumb. I mean, I guess the idea is to, grow the game and have everyone represented, but I feel like if you're going to get a lot, like, you're right, Johnny, no one really cares about the All-Star game, but if you're going to grow any sort of intrigue in it, you should have the best players there and not just someone from every team. I feel like that's way more intriguing than having just a bunch of mid-level players out there.
Yeah, my guess is the NHL sees it as, like, if you're a fan of a team and you don't have a player in the All-Star game, you probably won't watch the game, which is probably the way they see it. Because they like feel like they won't support it if no one for your team. But I mean, overall, like it's about money, but it's also, not a charity case. Like, it is supposed to be an all-star game. It should be the best player at the NHL, or else it's not an all-star game. Like, that's not the definition of an all-star game. Like, we dealt with that with when we did our lug hockey all-star. Avery knows we had to pick the teams, and people were expecting that we were going to pick a player from each team, but hey, it's an all-star game. Okay. Like, you pick the best players in the league. That's just how it works.
We had some backlash.
We did get some major backlash on picking the team, but overall, I think we did a great job picking the team. I mean, I think it's a complete joke. I mean, when you have one of the best players and one of the faces of the NHL calling you out on the way you do an all-star game, it's not a good look for the NHL. And I really don't.
Fan voting isn't a better option either. Like,
no, fan voting is not a better option. No.
Kansas City Royals a couple years ago just had, like, their whole team was the all-star players.
Yeah,
And
because
it's
you're
just
just gonna
like-
get the cities that care about it the fucking most. That will
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if anybody watched the trivia video we put out, we asked about Gergensons. Gergensons
Yeah.
got in because the entire country of
Country
Latvia
of
was
Latvia.
spam voting him to get in as a fourth liner to represent the country. So I think
we had
there's a
John
level
Scott
of like
too, right?
yeah, John Scott. Yeah, that was a big
got
one.
in because he was like the worst player in the league.
Yeah.
And then the NHL made it so much more drama than it had to be. They should have just embraced it as a meme. Like, this is the guy you guys wanted. Watch the All-Star game with John Scott. That got so many eyes on the game. He won the MVP. They carried around on the ice. Like, can you I remember that from an All-Star game. Can you remember anything else from any All-Star game?
I remember when they did the draft.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
the draft
why did they get rid of that? Like, I thought that did pretty well. It was like hilarious. We still talk about
I
Phil
think it's-
Kessel.
I think it's because of the division realignment. but
Oh,
Did you see
they
John
really
Scott's-
want to push. They really want to push for that. But
John
I
Scott's
don't know.
getting a movie now, and they're making this big whole thing. I feel weird about that whole thing. I feel like it's just like, don't you let like your little brother just score a goal on you, and you're like, oh my god, I went in.
Yeah.
That's like how I felt the whole week, and I was just like, this is, I don't know. Like, it's a nice story and that sort of thing, but it just like, he's clearly out of place. It was just an odd weekend. I thought.
I mean, he said he was out of place, right? Like you have to be you have to be an idiot if you're not self-aware enough to know that you shouldn't really be there. And like, he was in the minors at the time, right? Like they traded him to Montreal and they sent him down.
Yeah, that's like a league conspiracy that the NHL forced that trade to happen. So
He would be in the
Arizona didn't have a representative that year because John Scott was technically their representative, but he wore when he did. So he was in the hardest shot. He wasn't wearing a Habs jersey. He was wearing a black jersey with the NHL logo on it.
Ugh.
What, really?
Because they fumbled the bag, so they could have made that such a better spectacle than it actually was.
Yeah.
But the NHL is like so hell bent on making the All-Star game serious instead of just like, it's like we know it's a joke. They can just make it so much more fun.
They're always changing the rules and trying to see what sticks, and it seems like nothing ever sticks. But
until the players care about the game, there's no
Mhm.
reason the fans should really care about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Like a couple of years ago, they had to make a rule that if a player said I don't want to go, they got like
They get
suspended for a
suspended.
game,
Yeah.
It's
which is
ridiculous.
insane. Just like
Mhm.
remember there was the 1 year Yager won the fan vote, and he basically said like, please don't vote me. I need the week off to rest. I'm like, he was begging fans not to send him so he could rest because he's old, and they voted him anyways, and he had to go.
The NHL All-Star Game is like, it's bad, but I wouldn't even say it's the worst out of the major pro sports. Where would you guys rank that? Like Pro Bowl is just like almost it's literally unwatchable.
The MLB game might be one, to be honest.
It used to be when they used to be home, like it would be like
there was
it would be an advantage in the World Series final.
Yeah. Which I thought was
nice.
That was kind of, it was an interesting way of doing it. I know players didn't like that, right? Dave didn't really like that, the way they did that.
Sure. I think the owners and the teams didn't really like it.
Yeah.
Basing it off
really
what they got.
Hey, if you want to make it count, then like that's a way of doing it. Like, fuck, you better try, or I don't give a shit what you guys think. Sort of thing. But I think the MLB is probably one. Like I don't mind watching that game. Like it's kind of shitty that like how many pitchers are pitching in that game, and then you got to go to commercial every time they use a new pitcher because they need to warm up. That's the only shitty aspect of the MLB game, I think. But other than that, it seems like a great atmosphere. Like the home run derby has been a classic
part of any
or
the slam dunk competition, home run derby.
Yeah. I find the slam dunk competition now is getting a little dry. Just the dunks are like so similar every year. But
basketball, just the NBA All-Star game too, has just slowly gotten worse and worse every year. Like the score's like 200 to 230. I don't know. It just they keep getting worse. It seems like over the. I feel like I used to care about the All-Star game as a kid. Now it's such a joke. I don't think anyone cares about it.
Yeah, it's a joke.
NBA All-Star Weekend is better, and I think one of the things too the NHL really screws up on is like the NHL says, here's our All-Stars. Anybody who's selected has to compete in the competition. Where in other leagues, it's like, you'll get a guy like Zach LaVine when he did the slam dunk competition, he was one of the best. He had one of the best dunks of all time. He was not an all-star player though.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So it's like,
Yeah, that was weird.
if you can get Kapanen, Barzell, Mikheyev, guys like that to go in the fastest skater, that would be more fun. Or if like just send Chara for hardest shot. People just like don't put him in the game, but put him in hardest shot. If
I
they
think
started doing
Zegers
stuff
is going
like
for
that,
the skills this year. I think they are sending some people.
I think they usually send a couple rookies to the skill competition regardless. But they should just like, I don't know, if Chara wants to go for hardest shot, like allow him. Like I think it's a good way too to get some younger faces into the game. Like they don't have to be rookies.
No, yeah, I
right?
think
Like there's some more unique stuff you can do.
Yeah, that would be smart to try that. At least give them the option. I wonder if they've tried that before and players have just declined the offer because they don't want to travel there or whatever just to do one event. But it's not like we've seen it before. But then again, I guess the NBA, you could counter and say they're probably getting some sort of money and incentive to go there to do that, right? More than what they would get with hockey going to do a slap shot competition. But anyways, talking about atmospheres with COVID-19, obviously we got to witness in the last 2 years, like I guess like what an empty barn feels like in the NHL. Makes you really appreciate when you see a packed barn. The question came up. I know that like we could try to answer this the best of our ability, but who has the best home crowd in the NHL, in your opinion?
Jesus.
Oh man,
It's tough.
I like the Habs atmosphere a lot.
Have you been to a Montreal game?
Not in Montreal.
I feel like that's something that I would want to go to, like just like a big game in a Montreal, because Montreal obviously is one of the first teams that come to mind. Boston is another one, like playoff Boston home game. I feel like would be one of the best home crowds out there.
I mean, the Rangers actually looked pretty. I don't know how like diehard their fans are, but the MSG looked pretty going when they fucking beat the Leafs this week.
I mean they're a bit of they're like what the Leafs kind of have sometimes, where there's like that big blue collar crowd in the first few rows, or white collar crowd.
Yeah,
these games are terrible. Such a bad vibe.
It's like going to the movies.
The two that stick out of like, I mean, you feel like you really see it when they go on playoff runs.
Yeah.
Like Chicago, the Madhouse, when they were doing their runs back in the day, where like you could feel it through the TV. Those were awesome. Yeah. And then I wouldn't say that's like a hockey town, but Nashville, when they were on their run, like I think it's just a party city. So it was just sick to see all the people out on Broadway. I don't know. And like, so Nashville kind of was pretty sweet back in the day too.
You also have to think like Philly too. Like these older teams, their fans are diehards. When it comes down to it, those places are filled. They're loud every time you're playing a playoff game.
Yeah, it's crazy because you can talk like we can probably name like 8 to 10 teams that like the Oilers, for example, if they had a long playoff run, I bet you we'd be talking about that atmosphere there.
They're also the worst. Did you see that the guys were throwing jerseys on the ice the other day? I think that's the dumbest thing. If you're throwing a jersey on the ice, like after your team loses, you're just an idiot. That's like $150 at least.
Yeah, that's just like
on the ice, man.
You're telling them you're going to buy a new jersey.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Insane.
That is brutal. I hate to get off this, but Johnny, this is a thing me and you have talked about for a while. I saw a TikTok where they talked about they thought it was outrageous to buy a jersey younger than someone, and they just got absolutely shit on. Your thoughts on that?
Listen, okay? You're not going to tell a grown adult they can't wear a Matthews jersey or a McDavid jersey because it's their favorite team of all time. Like, that's so, like, I don't know. I feel like if an 80-year-old guy's wearing a McDavid jersey, you wouldn't tell him off. But, like, if a 26-year-old guy is, like, what? Like, why? I can't comprehend what's wrong with that. It actually blows my mind that somebody's like, oh, that guy's younger than you. You can't wear his jersey. No, I don't give a shit. I love him. He's my favorite player. He makes me happy.
It is a funny discussion. Like Avery said that he found that TikTok and the guy was getting ripped apart. And like, what was it, like a month ago? We had that big, well, it wasn't a big talk, but it was a topic discussion.
I thought it was like, I don't care, but if I see like a 55-year-old wearing like an OHL jersey, odd.
Yeah.
Like, really,
yeah.
I think that's weird. But
I'll give you, this is a kind of a separate point. I think if you're above the age of like 12, you shouldn't wear a team jersey with your name on it.
oh,
That's
yeah,
another discussion.
Yes, yeah. That is a
that's-
completely separate topic, but yes, you should
only
not be
youth
wearing
jerseys should have only youth jerseys should have like your name on it.
Yeah, the option
You know
to
what I think?
customize.
that. Mhm.
Dave, do you think it's weirder if like you're 26, 28 wearing like an 18 to 20-year-old jersey, or for a 55 to 60-year-old to wear like an 18 to 20-year-old person's player's jersey?
I
What's
think the
weird?
55-year-old.
Is weirder?
Yeah, I think that's odd.
That's
See, I
it's a
think that's
tough
almost
question.
more normal. I think that's almost
Yeah.
more normal for you to
Maybe.
like. It's essentially, yeah, I don't know. It's
It's
tough,
somebody
tough
who's
debate.
your
This has
kid.
been ongoing.
It's somebody who'd be like your kid's age.
Yeah, you'd
Where
be
it's like, I
I'd
feel
rather
like
cheer for this
like
kid than mine.
See that
like,
putting it like that,
there-
Gianni, feels really goddamn weird.
So
like-
weird.
is it though? Like I don't know. Like so like hey, there's guys in the league who are younger than us. We call
Yeah.
them kids. Like we were like, oh, that kid's sick.
Yeah.
But if you're 55, everybody in the league is a kid to you,
Yeah.
right?
I'm
So
not saying
if-
I can't say I like them. It's the difference is like going out and buying a jersey and wearing like this kid's name on my back.
Yeah, like why
It's
don't
just
like,
an odd concept.
like unless you know the person, I think it's just a little odd. Like I wouldn't bat twice at it. It would be like, okay, like that's fine. Like you go out and see it. It's like, okay, that's fine. But just buy like a team sweater, like a hoodie or something. Just support the team. In my opinion, if you're that old.
What are your
Wear a
thoughts
Legends
on
jersey.
what are your thoughts on no name jerseys though? Like no name on the back jerseys. Are you a fan of those?
No, I'm
You
Yeah,
gotta go
I
with
don't like those at all either.
really,
I don't like those at all either.
I don't know. I have a ton of them. I have a ton of jerseys that have no names,
Mhm.
and
Really?
like
So much more boring.
Yeah, I feel like
It's-
it's just like you're just telling people like you can't afford something with with a name on it.
Are you calling him poor right now?
No,
Is that what
no.
we're
'cause-
doing here?
we go from Cole's aunt's house that's being apparently massive, which lives next to a Ginlet, to me not being able to afford names on the back of my jersey. Like I don't know where this is going on the show anymore.
I feel like we're in the minority on this one, though. I feel like we're
Yeah,
definitely
no,
in the minority.
I'm fine with it. Like
Yeah.
I think I just like wearing like I have this Canucks jersey I wear in the ODR. It's an Alex McGillney old school Canucks jersey.
Lame.
Like
Mhm.
I don't know, I just feel better than wearing like Elias Pettersson on the back of that.
Mhm.
I could be
Yeah.
wrong. I'm fine with being wrong in this situation. I wouldn't bat an eye if any of you guys did it. Just it's something. I don't know why it's something.
It's definitely been a debate. We'll need to know people's opinion. We know one of our viewers or frequent viewers, Ghost in the Discord. He's adamant that he will wear a McCarr jersey. He will wear a McCarr jersey, which is fine. Which is
Yeah,
is
power to 'em.
accepted. We just thought
Yeah.
we'd throw out that it might be a little odd. It might be a little odd to some people.
Yeah.
But anyways, I wanted to talk about Sheldon Keefe. Obviously, Abe was talking about the atmosphere at the Rangers game. Rangers have been great this year, but the Leafs lost 6-3. And he calls out the team for he pretty much called them out and said, like, we weren't in the game. We weren't. What was it, Gianni? What was the word he used?
Soft, wasn't it?
It was like soft, right? Like he's called this team soft. Do the Leafs need to make a move at the deadline, or is this team ready to contend for the cup? Because it's not a great look when your coach is obviously calling you soft, and it's been one of the things that people have critiquing for a while now, that this team needs more, smashing bodies around like Bruins hockey sort of plays. But do we think the Leafs need to add someone, or do you think this was just a case of the coach was just trying to wake up the fellas, trying to wake up the fellas?
They brought in like Nick Ritchie. Like
Mhm.
I don't blame them for signing that contract. Like sometimes they don't work out, and that's okay. Like he just really didn't work out. I think Simmons just doesn't have that juice in him anymore.
Yeah.
Bunting's a good little rat on the top line. They got a bunch of guys who are like pretty good, but I think the defense doesn't scare anybody. It's all puck movers.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
Muzzin, who's actually like a pretty big guy, but he's looked like he's just kind of step behind this year. I don't know. It's just tough. They're so close. They're like missing something. I don't know exactly. I couldn't even tell you what it is. If you asked anybody to look at this roster, like objectively, like don't pretend it's not the Leafs. It's a good roster, top to bottom. I don't know if it's like a top 5 roster, but it's a really good one. They just like, I don't know. There's something they got to make a trade if they're actually serious this year. Like last year, they went for Nick Foligno, didn't work.
Yep.
There's got to be somebody out there who's gonna fit in.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if they do anything at the deadline. They could take an approach where it's like, we're riding with whatever we have right now. Like, this is our squad. This is what we're gonna do. But yeah, no, it's just tough. Like, you would have to reconstruct the entire team to be something like the Bruins, right? Like that play aggressive hockey. Like it's not easy to just fix, especially with all the money you're committing to your top guys. So maybe they just take an approach where they go full offense and get an offensive player at the deadline. Cause obviously them trying to be physical and adding that body, like, hasn't been working. And we saw that recently. So it'll be interesting what we see, but I thought that was interesting, calling out the team. But holy crap, man, come playoffs, this Leafs team, like this entire team is going to be going potentially one of the most pressured playoffs they've been through. Like, I think there's going to be so much pressure on the Leafs to win the series, their first series. Like, I just like, I can't even imagine how, like, looking at that series, you guys probably watch it, that doc on Amazon Prime, and just seeing how Dubas is talking to Marner and Matthew. Marner looks devastated, like just devastated. Like the pressure these kids are, I am calling them kids now, even though they're a little older than me, but to put on themselves is actually like a little bit tough to watch. But they get so much money that like you're kind of like, well, I was get 11 mil in the year, put as much pressure as you want on me. But do you think that these guys are putting too much pressure on themselves?
It's so what all you said. I'll kind of go back to what I think here. Boston's coming for Toronto right now.
Yeah.
Like Boston's playing really good hockey. It was more of a thing like, hey, fellas, like we need to wake up, like what we're going through. That division's probably the best division in hockey. Is that what we're thinking right now? Florida, Tampa, Boston, the Leafs.
Top four is amazing. Bottom four sucks.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah. So obviously top heavy, but those teams are fucking sick.
Yeah.
Like them getting a wild card spot is probably what's going to happen here, unless we figure this out quick. And then it's right back to where they were from all the years before, right? Like not at the top of the division, playing a better team in the playoffs. Like, oh, you guys need to win because you're the Leafs. These guys are making so much money. And then the pressure's on them from the outside, but it really shouldn't be. They should, when you're the lower seed, you should be playing with less pressure. Like, you should think you have nothing to lose, but the history of the team, how much notoriety they get, everyone covering them is the pressure that's been put on.
Yeah. There's going to be, it's exciting though. It's definitely exciting.
I think there's so much pressure because, like, if they go out in the first or second round, again, you can't just run back the same squad for the third or fourth year in a row. There's going to be, like, you'd assume that one of those big pieces is going to have to move to make room for something else, to shift something around, to change up the lineup, so you're not like continuously just losing in the first or second round again. So, I mean, I feel like if you're Marner, I feel like that's in the back of your head all the time. That's like, fuck, if we don't do it this year, I might be out of here.
Yeah. No, I
agree. I have a bit of, I don't know if this is a hot take for you guys. This might sound like a bit of a loser mentality, but if you lose in the first round in 7 to a team like Tampa Bay, like if all those games are close, like you're not like just getting clapped when you lose and it's a close game when you win. You play just 7 hard games. Like, I don't know, like, how can you say like, well, like we lost to the team who has back-to-back cups? Like if the Islanders played Tampa in the first round last year and lost, is that more of a disappointment than losing to them in the third round? Like you lost to the same team. So it's a bit of like, I think last year when they lost to Montreal that was the first legitimate, like them, and when they lost to Columbus. Those are legitimate.
Yeah.
Like, you should not lose those series. But when you lose to Tampa, it's like if Tampa loses in the first round, people aren't going to say, well, that's a disappointment because they have cups already. But I would say it's more of a disappointment. I would say it's more of a disappointment for Tampa to lose in the first round of Toronto than it is for Toronto to lose to Tampa. But just it's the perspective of Toronto never wins.
You have a proven group in Tampa that could win cups. Like they've done it before. You got a group of guys that have been out in the first round 4 years, like consecutive years. At some point, you can't just keep like running it back with the same group.
I would argue too. Tampa had a worse first round loss when they got swept by Columbus than any of Toronto's losses.
Yeah.
And they just ran back that roster.
Yeah, but you gotta look at Lightning though. They came back and won 2 cups in a row though after that, right? Like you look at that
with the exact same roster though. That's the thing.
Yeah, but the Leafs should like are past that Columbus swept. I feel like they're past that. Like they lost to Columbus. The best of 3 Columbus was like that was almost embarrassing for the Leafs. And the Montreal, like they should have destroyed them. How do you can't blow a 3-1 series lead against a team that you should be, in fact, like beating handily, and you're up 3-1 and you blow it with 2 home games? Like that's crazy. So now like they've earned this type of pressure. Like losing to Montreal last year, you're going to play a really strong team in the first round this year, and you better come ready to play. And if they don't put up a fight, I mean, the expectation is going to be, obviously, you're in Toronto, you're in a market that's huge, is you better win that series. But I think whoever they play, it's not going to be a 4-game sweep by Toronto. It's going to be a hard-fought 7-game series because those teams are just too good. Those are cup contending teams. It sucks for the Leafs, but they're going to have a very hard first-round matchup.
So let me ask. I want all your guys' opinions on this. What's a worse season for the Leafs? You win in the first round and you just get absolutely destroyed, swept in the second round, or you have a good 7-game hard-fought battle that was basically a coin flip. It was Game 7 overtime and you lost. What's a worse outcome for them? What's a worse season?
The first round.
Yeah, I would still think. Losing in the first round.
It's the mental hurdle more than it is the actual thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think from a management perspective, like you can see through that. If you're like, oh, no, we like lost to it. If that team does well, like, it's a coin flip game, I think that's more of a positive. But just purely from like a marketing perspective, having to get people to buy into that team again that's lost in the first round 5 consecutive years would be so tough. Like you're going to hear it from the media on all different sides. I think, Johnny, you had a great point last week where it's like if they can beat Boston and like exercise their demons, they are going to be like, I think they're just team of destiny. Like I think they're so much more prone to win the Stanley Cup if they're able to go through Boston, because the amount of momentum that would build up from beating a team that's just had your number for so long would be huge.
Yep. I agree. We'll wrap things up here on that topic. We'll have people comment below what they think of the Leafs. What would be an acceptable outcome this year? We want to know what you guys think. Drop them in the comments. And like always, hopefully next week we are in person. We'll have a beer. We'll chat some hockey. And we'll see you guys next week.